Alrighty guys, so this is the Nanlux Dyno 1200C and it is freaking gigantic and outputs an insane amount of light. So today I'll go and check it out and I'll show you like how I actually used it to shoot my recent short film, The Mistake. How's it going guys? My name is Andrew Murphy from Down Under in Gold Coast, Australia. Now, a lot of you are probably super familiar by now of the Nanlite brand because I do obviously talk about them a lot and I love the products that they make, but you probably aren't super familiar with Nanlux, the brand, which is actually under the same company brand as Nanlux. It's the main brand is actually Nangwan. So basically how it works, I guess in a nutshell, is that Nanlite captures the prosumer market, whereas Nanlux is for like the big boys that need like an insane amount of light. And more than likely you'll see Nanlux products on say like a film set or a high-end production where obviously more power is needed, but they're also kind of starting to blur the line between like where Nanlite ends and then when Nanlux begins. This thing weighs 29 kilos for just the light itself, and it definitely requires at least 2 people to actually set it up. Now I actually had to go out and I got a Kupo combo stand and it has this like massive speaker hole in it because none of the light stands that I have are really super heavy duty. Like I've got some C stands, but they've just got the standard, I think it's 3/8 spigot, and I needed like the big 5/8 I think it is, that this light actually uses. But the light stand that I actually got doubles as like a standard C stand. So if you pop up this little thing, you can see that you can use it just like you would a C stand, but it's super heavy duty, super like solid, and it goes up extremely high as well. So it'd be good to have just like for future stuff if I need to boom my lights up high, or if I need to, I guess like, guess I boom stuff in as well because that pivot point and having that really solid base will make it really strong. Now real quick as well, a massive shout out to the team over at ProTog Australia for hooking me up and allowing me to use this. No, I don't get to keep this one, but honestly, I probably wouldn't want to anyway. Like for the way that I shoot, because it's generally just myself, maybe myself and one assistant, it's just way too much light, way too heavy, way too bulky and big to be carrying around and setting up by myself. So yeah, it's just, I guess it's not really the light for me, but it was really cool to be able to use it on this short film. But in saying that, if you do want to check out this light in store, then they will have it and they will actually be renting it out as well. So I guess if you do want to try it out for yourself, then definitely hit them up. I'll leave a link down below to their description. I'll leave a link down below to their website so you can get in contact with them and have a chat and see what you can do. Now with all that aside, I know I just said it's not the right light for me, but it was the perfect light for the short film that we shot with it, The Mistake. And if you haven't seen it, I'll leave it linked up here so you can go check it out. But basically we used the Dyno 1200C for, I reckon, about 90% of like the lighting in all the actual like shots. And then we just used a little bit of, we used the Pavo Tube 15Xs and 30Xs for just like a tiny bit of fill light where we just need to kind of like wrap it around a little bit. But honestly, it was just, the 1200C was just insane. And it was, I guess, the reason that we were able to shoot this short film with just like basically a single light, I guess. And the reason that this light was absolutely perfect for this short film was purely because of the crazy amounts of light that it can output. Because basically I wanted a light that had enough output to basically light up an entire forest, because when you're in a forest you really need to create depth, and usually you have to use multiple light sources and like kind of scatter them around to get that depth. But because this is just insanely bright and we can actually have it far away, like I'm pretty sure most of the time it was 20-30 meters away from us when we're shooting, maybe even further, and it basically just lit up the entire forest and lit up our subjects with enough light to basically like be able to see what they're doing. It was just, it's just insane. Now the wild thing about this light is that the CCT range is from 2700 Kelvin all the way up to 20,000 Kelvin, which I think I've ever seen on a light before. But if you're wanting to get the max output, which I'm pretty sure is at 1400 watts, then you need to change the CCT mode to just like it's like a confined one, and it goes from 2700 Kelvin to 7500 Kelvin, and that's how you get the max amount of light out of this thing. Now we actually mostly use this at about 50% power when I was shooting this short film. And that was for 2 reasons. So firstly, the generator that we were running it off was only like a 2.2, 2.5 kVA. So at 100%, the generator was just like basically revving as much as it could. It was actually pretty loud. And we couldn't really, I guess, get clean audio if the generator is just cranking the whole time. And number 2 as well, because at 100%, it was actually too bright for the distance that we had it away. So Obviously, we could have moved the light further away, but I'm renting this light. It's worth $15,000. I'm not just gonna put it like, 50, 60 meters away and not be able to see it, and then hope that someone doesn't just run past and knock it over or something happens. And yeah, I wanted to have it kind of like in visual line of sight at all times, just to kind of like keep my sanity sort of thing. Now, I shot this entire short film on my Canon C70, basically my go-to camera at the moment, my go-to rig, and I was using my Makey Super 35mm cinema lenses. These things are just freaking amazing. And I actually shot this all by myself. Jason was there, he was assisting, and he was kind of like doing some BTS and helping with lighting and all that kind of stuff. But I wanted to kind of just like try shoot it as much as I can by myself. So I had the new, whatever this is, small rig follow focus system thing, yeah, manual follow focus system, and I was focusing all myself. I just had a shotgun mic, which was the Cinco one, that M1, no, the Cinco, what is this one, Cinco something. I'll leave a link up here to whatever the mic was. I can't even remember, Cinco D1 or something. I actually just had it mounted on the camera, and it actually made some really clean audio. And then yeah, just use an easy rig or like a knockoff easy rig to basically like support the camera. And then was just able to kind of like run around and get the shots, and it actually worked really good. And then for the actual story, we actually made up the dialogue, basically like made up the script and everything, and shot the whole thing in 5 hours. So it's a pretty short turnaround time, and it's like, I'm really impressed by how it actually turned out for the little amount of time that we actually were able to put into this. But wouldn't have been possible without an absolutely amazing, talented crew that we worked with. I'll leave all their kind of like Instagram handles and stuff down below if you want to go check out their work, because they're a freaking amazing team. So now, one super cool feature of the Nanlux Dyno 1200 is that the dimming adjustment is in 0.1% increments, which makes dialing in like that perfect amount of light super easy. And when you got like a 1400 watt light, you want to be able to dial in really small increments, because like 1% would just be huge and way too powerful. So that's why it makes a lot of sense. But I've noticed that like when you are cranking it up the dial, I don't know, it was a bit hit and miss for me. Sometimes like it would go really fast, sometimes it kind of wouldn't register and it would go a little bit slow. There must be some kind of like art to actually adjusting it. But because I couldn't actually figure it out real quick when we're actually shooting on set, I just connected it to my little Nanlux remote that I've got, and just dialed into channel 1 on the DMX port, and then basically just used that to control it, and it worked perfectly. Like, it was just perfect to be able to quickly adjust it, turn it on and off, and adjust the settings. It was really good. Now, you notice that the panel comes with a diffusion panel built in, which makes the light extremely soft, even though it's like extremely bright as well. Like, it kind of doesn't make sense. And this also mounts as the mounting points for the modifiers as well. Now, I did also get the Octabox attachment for this, but when I actually went to set it up in my apartment to kind of like test it out, it was too big to fit the light on my stand and then the modifier on the light without hitting the roof. And I also found a bit of a design flaw as well. When you have the Octabox mounted on the frame, because it has these little pins, which I'll show you right now, it has these little pins where the actual like, I guess modifier kind of like, what do you call it, rods actually attaches into it. And because of these, you can't tilt it downwards anymore. It only goes to basically like, I guess 90 degrees, which I think is a bit of a kind of like disadvantage. Most of the time, I guess you'd be mounting it on the ground. So if you want to use the Octabox, it can only be directly up and down, which I think is a bit of a bad design. So now I wanted to do some sort of comparison just so you can see like how bright this thing really is, and also how big it is as well. So this is the Dyno 1200C next to the Mixpanel 150, which is Nanlight's most powerful RGB panel light. And the Mixpanel is absolutely tiny compared to the 1200C, and honestly the Mixpanel feels like a freaking feather after lifting the Dyno 1200C onto that stand. Like, oh, it is so heavy. And then in terms of the output, obviously it's going to be a lot brighter. Oh, that is actually just so bright. I get sneezy when there's like really bright source light like the sun, but it's doing the same thing to me. Oh my god. Okay, so for reference, this is the Mixpanel 150 right now, basically in the same spot. So you can see just had little light, and this is the Dyno, so you can see how much brighter it is. Obviously you wouldn't really use it in close proximity like this, but potentially you could do like a day to night pretty easy by using this light, or even like a night to day, if that kind of works as well. Yeah, it's so bright. And then this is off, so You can see how much light it's adding. And also like how much the light spreads as well. With the Dyno 1200C on, it basically lights up my entire apartment. It makes it look almost like that kind of like HDR look when you're like shooting on an iPhone, which is pretty cool. Now, like most Nanlite products as well, the Dyno 1200 also has the option to turn the fan off, but you are going to limit the output that you get. So with the fan on, obviously you're going to get 100% max output. Then there is like a low mode or a quiet mode, and I think you get about 75% output. And then if you turn the fan off altogether, you still get 45% output, which is like insane. Like it's still like 550, 600 watts or something, which is super duper bright, and that is no fans as well, so you're not going to have basically any noise. Now the Dyno 1200C also has built-in effects as well, like I guess most lights do these days, and I actually utilized this feature on the short film in the opening scene for it. And for this, I just cranked up the speed all the way to 100 on that fire effect, and it gave that like really crazy flickering and flashing effect, I guess, with the fire. And then basically after shooting at 100 frames a second and then slowing it down to normal, it looks really, really good. And this shot was actually pretty hard to capture as well, because I guess like I shot it all handheld, it was all manual focus, like trying to keep the subjects in frame while they're kind of like falling down. Like there was a lot going on. It took about I think like 11 or 12 takes to get it, but the final one that we actually got I was really happy with. And I wasn't planning to have it all in slow motion. I was planning to maybe like slow it down to 50 frames a second, but then when I actually watched it back at 100 frames a second and just like drags it out, I guess it really adds like a lot of emotion and like really sets it up to then start the film. Now, apart from the weight and my back being pretty sore after lugging this around, the Dyno 1200C worked absolutely flawlessly. I'll definitely like keep it in mind if I'm like working on bigger productions and whatnot, where I need a ton of light, rather than just getting like a bunch of little lights. Like why not just get one light and just light up everything, make it so much easier.